You ever think about how much ancient people actually figured out just by watching nature? Like long before science, before DNA and microscopes, there were people working the land, farmers, who somehow understood some of life's biggest secrets. And one of the wildest things they discovered was this. If you keep breeding animals or planting crops from the same family line, things start to fall apart. The animals get weaker, the plants stop thriving. It's like life slowly loses its spark. And the crazy part? They figured that out thousands of years before modern science even existed. Let's go back, way back, to when farming was brand new. People had just started growing their own food instead of hunting for it. They were saving seeds, breeding animals, and trying to make sure they had enough to survive the next season. At first it was simple. Take the biggest bull, the strongest cow, the best seeds, and keep breeding or planting those. And for a while it worked perfectly. The crops were healthy, the animals were strong. But after a few generations, something weird started happening. The cows were giving less milk. The sheep got thinner. The plants stopped producing like before. And these early farmers didn't have any scientific explanation. They just knew something wasn't right. They called it bad blood or weak seed. But what they were really seeing was inbreeding, the loss of genetic diversity. They couldn't explain it, but they could feel the difference in their work, in their fields, in their herds. Now these weren't people who just gave up. They started testing things out. Some began trading animals with neighbors, others swapped seeds with distant villages. And the results were clear. The animals got stronger again, the plants healthier, the yield went up. They didn't have labs or data, but they had something just as powerful. Experience. They learned that life thrives when there's variety. It was the first unwritten rule of biology. Diversity means strength. Fast forward a few thousand years to medieval Europe. Most villages were isolated, and everyone used the same animals, the same seeds, the same everything. At first it was seen as a good thing. Pure breeds, pure bloodlines. But after some time, farmers started noticing the same old problems. Smaller animals, weaker crops, more sickness. They even had a name for it. Inbreeding. Too much of the same family line. So they went back to what had always worked, mixing things up. They traded animals between villages again, mixed seeds from different regions. And, surprise, everything got better. It's kind of amazing how often we humans have to rediscover the same lesson. By the 1700s, farming was starting to get more organized. People were taking notes, keeping records, experimenting. And one English farmer, Robert Bakewell, took it to a whole new level. He studied which animals produced the best offspring and started mixing breeds intentionally. His goal was to make livestock stronger, healthier, and more productive. And it worked. He basically proved what generations of farmers already knew. When you bring different genes together, life becomes more resilient. What Bakewell was doing was the beginning of modern genetics, even if he didn't know it yet. About a century later, in a quiet monastery in Austria, a monk named Gregor Mendel was growing pea plants. He wasn't a farmer exactly, but he lived among them, and he saw their struggles. Mendel started cross-pollinating plants, mixing colors and shapes, tracking what happened each generation. And after years of careful work, he figured it out. The basic laws of inheritance. Traits don't just blend randomly. They follow patterns, passed down from parents to offspring. Mendel didn't invent the idea of genetic mixing. He just proved what farmers had been observing for thousands of years. He turned folk wisdom into science. You'd think that after all that, people would remember the importance of diversity. But history shows we keep forgetting. In the 1840s, Ireland faced one of the worst famines in history. Almost every farmer was growing the same variety of potato. All clones, genetically identical. When a fungus hit, it spread like wildfire. Every crop died. Over 1 million people starved. It was a brutal reminder. If everything is the same, one small problem can destroy it all. And even today, we still make the same mistake. Most modern farms grow massive fields of a single crop. Corn, soy, wheat. It's efficient, sure, but it's risky. One pest, one new disease, and everything can collapse. Nature keeps teaching us this over and over again. Sameness is fragile. Difference keeps you alive. Now, fast forward to the modern world. We've got genetic engineering, CRISPR, artificial intelligence. We can literally edit life itself. But at the core, all this advanced science is just rediscovering the same truth those early farmers already knew. Every healthy system, whether it's a forest, a family, or a farm, depends on diversity. The ancient farmer with dirt on his hands and the modern scientist looking through a microscope are, in a weird way, doing the same thing. They're both trying to understand how life stays strong. One learned it by watching crops grow. The other learns it by decoding genes. But they're both listening to nature's same quiet lesson. So when you hear people talk about inbreeding, genetics, or diversity, don't just picture labs and DNA charts. Picture a farmer thousands of years ago standing in a muddy field, wondering why his animals were getting weaker, and realizing that maybe, just maybe, life needs a mix to survive. Because the truth is simple. Sameness weakens and diversity strengthens. That's not just a law of biology. That's a rule of life. If you enjoy stories like this, ones that connect science, history, and a little bit of human curiosity, stick around, hit subscribe, and let's uncover more forgotten lessons from the past. Because sometimes the smartest discoveries don't come from labs. They come from people who were just paying attention.